Title of this video may seem a little strange, but I mean it, and I mean it 100%. I'm a person in recovery. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm fairly public about it, although I didn't particularly want to harp on about it too much on my YouTube channel. But I'm going to talk about it because I think it's necessary. So it's a problem that I had. It lasted for about 10 years. The last 3 years approximately, it sank down very rapidly and I ended up in a very hellish situation. But rather than talk about my own stories, what I want to focus on is what fixed me up. What fixed me up was a service called Quality of Life in Leicester. It was incredibly dynamic, and I would even go as far as to say revolutionary in the way that it operated and structured itself. How it operated and structured itself is that it was on a model of peers, a peer-led model, so that the people essentially running the community, which was at the heart of that service, were peers, therefore people in recovery and people using that service itself. They were all working class people, they were all people from the estates, a lot of people had been in prison, a lot of people were recovering heroin addicts, recovering alcoholics. There were staff, they were upstairs in the office, and they would keep their eye on it. They would go in and the person on the reception was a person in recovery. They would have a gym down in the cellar, the basement. It was run by a guy who they trained up. He's a working class boxer. They trained him up with his gym certificate and he ran it. So all these working class lads, ex-prisoners and whatnot down in the gym. It was brilliant, brilliant atmosphere. Had a cafe run by a woman who was in recovery, computer room, and they picked, selected and trained up a layer of peer mentors. These are people who'd been through all of those kind of crazy experiences, but they'd sorted their lives out. They're all working class, and they became essentially like community leaders and community coordinators, and it created an incredibly engaging and dynamic environment. It's one of the most inspiring things that I've ever been a part of in my life. And this is key. Street smarts are a form of intelligence. But just like science fiction as a genre of literature, street smarts within the field of intelligence is essentially discriminated against, looked down upon and rejected. It's seen as a bastardized form of intelligence. Nothing of the sort. It is a form of intelligence. And when you get people who are living in some of the most dysfunctional, marginalised circumstances, and you put them in an environment where their street smarts can be used productively and positively to help not only themselves but their peers, it is incredible, and you begin to see what those people are capable of. Somebody like me coming from the left, to be a part of that and to be fixed up by that environment, by those guys, essentially those are the guys who fixed me up. Bottom line was mind-blowing, absolutely phenomenal. We started off with 40 service users. By the time it was shut down, they lost the contract, it was downsized, and then they moved it to a smaller location. They ripped the heart out of it. That model which it operated on was just killed. We lost approximately 200 service users that thought it's shit now, and they fucked off, a lot of them back to the madness which they'd been dragged back out of by that service itself. So why is this a massively important issue politically? It's a massive important issue because the left, well, apart from the fact that I invited some local lefts to come and visit it because the cafe was open. It was an open platformed cafe where members of the public were allowed to come in. I said, you want to come and see this? It's absolutely amazing. You won't believe what's happening here, but they never bothered. Unbelievable. When it shut down, there wasn't a peep from the local left. In fact, the local left weren't aware of it. 99% of them weren't even aware that this place existed. It was an autonomous, working class led, dynamic, revolutionary community where people's lives were being turned around, including my own. One very quick example would be if I was thinking of doing something stupid, the guy I would go and speak to would be a working class guy, spent years in and out of prison. I'd sit down with him, have a coffee, That would be the guy who would convince me that it was a bad idea and there were better choices to make. Absolutely remarkable to see my people and people coming from the kind of background that I come from leading a community and helping to change people's lives, completely turn them around in such a remarkable, smart, inventive, dynamic way is just the most inspirational thing I've ever been a part of, and it was life transforming. Tragically, the next step which they were going to take before they lost the contract, it was downsized and shut. It's recently just gone through another change and it is deteriorated even further. The next step was to go out into communities, working class communities, to publicise who we really are, what we're really capable of, how people can turn their lives around, and how that community and peer-led model is fundamentally effective. Now this is one of the primary things regarding working class people and working class communities that the left is getting catastrophically wrong. You see, you don't engage with working class people, you don't recognise the skills and the abilities they've got, you don't emancipate them, you don't empower them, not a bit of it, and in fact you don't know how to do that. Because when you do engage with them, there's rare times when you do, you have to drag them into your organisation or to your party. They have to listen to your political spiels, they have to go to your stalls, they have to become a part of your structures and your leadership and your way of thinking. That's like a middle-class social worker telling people what they should be doing, telling people how they should be thinking, telling people what they should be doing for themselves, for their class and for their communities. It's a mistake. How you do it is that you have to have people themselves who are from those communities, and you use the assets that people have. This is why the model of recovery is so important, and it's fundamentally a radical class argument and position. Okay, it isn't separated from any of that for one bit. Drug and alcohol problems are organically manifested within our class. It tears us to pieces and it decimates our communities. So a solution to that is fundamentally a class issue. Okay, but again, it's ignored by the left. It isn't championed in any way, shape or form like it should be. Again, sending people with addiction problems to prison causes overcrowding. It doesn't give them treatment. A lot of these guys that I saw turn their lives around, a number of them are now professionals, had spent years in and out of Nick. They'd been dragged through the gutter from day one in their lives. A lot of guys who'd been in care, a lot of guys who'd been abused physically and sexually, a lot of guys who, even if those horrific things hadn't have happened, other horrific things had happened to them in life, or they were trying to mask psychological problems or traumatic events. You self-medicate, it solves problems in the short term but fucks you up in the medium to long term. This peer model can be expanded and diversified with just a little bit of tweaking. Radical community centres in every town and every city in this country, creating a platform where people can empower and emancipate both themselves and their communities using the assets that they have themselves, the smarts that they have themselves, the skills and the understanding that they have themselves about who they are, what they need and how they can solve their problems. You don't go there and tell them how to think and how to operate. You go there and listen to them, you see what assets that they have, and you use the dynamism that they have themselves and create solutions to it. Or, to be even more accurate, they create those solutions themselves. The one problem that they have often isn't that they have a lack of intelligence or ability. On the contrary, you are making such a catastrophic mistake if you think that. It's that there is no base. Okay, it's like slipping down an elevator shaft, greased up, and there's just nothing beneath you and you're gathering momentum and going down faster and faster. It's simply the elevator creating a platform which you stand on now. You've got time to think, you've got time to consider your options. You create a framework which people themselves begin to grab onto in whatever way they see fit, and then it organically develops. What is happening under the noses of the left is unknown. How could you know what's going on out there? How could you know what skills these people have got? How could you understand their stories or their daily experiences when you have zero understanding of those issues yourselves, generally speaking, and you have zero connection to those communities? And again, you haven't been immersed in it. You always go there like social workers to help them rather than being an organic member of it yourself. So when you go into those communities, rather than emancipating people and enfranchising people, you disenfranchise people and marginalise them because they have to do it your way. Your way doesn't work. That is the great disaster of momentum. It's primarily made up of old crusty lefties and middle class students. Even if you wanted to do this, I doubt that you would be able to. You wouldn't have the energy or the insight or the dynamism to be able to do it effectively. Parties and organisations coming from the right and the far right are beginning to grasp this. They're beginning to focus on issues that are important, like prisons and prison reform. But again, this isn't one of the trendy issues. When things were happening around prisons locally, where were the left? Weren't interested in it. They've got more important things to focus on. Okay, the right are gonna start grasping these things. The right are gonna start engaging with working class people and empowering working class voices. And if we don't get in there first, and I'm not holding my breath, I can assure you, it's gonna come back to bite you on the arse. The dynamism that they have, the streetwise smarts that they have are going to be used not with us, but against us. And you will realise the catastrophic error of judgment that you've made simply focusing on 27% of white collar, primarily white collar, unionised workers and ignoring the working class. Not even using the term, but rather referring to people as ordinary working people. It is identity politics that dominates the day. Every issue is mentioned and championed apart from the issue of class. It is a catastrophic error of judgment, and it is creeping up to bite us bloodily on the backside. We need to start waking up, and waking up fast, and one of these issues is that very model. Okay, so I wasn't harping on about drug and alcohol issues too much. I was harping on about that model and how it needs to be championed and screamed about. Because if you don't grasp how important this is, we're going to lose. We better make damn fucking sure that they are on our side. Because you will see what they're capable of, how much energy and intelligence they've got. And I think they'll make a lot of the left look ridiculous very quickly. So pray to fucking Christ that you've got those people on your side. So start thinking out of the box and start communicating and involving working class people in communities, because it will destroy you if you don't. And you can take that to the bank, my friends.